Well, one could make the argument that Henry Ford was probably the most important man in automotive history. One could also make the argument that Edsel Ford was the first designer in history to actually look at the automobile as something more than a practical form of transportation, but as art. Edsel Ford was a designer, Edsel Ford was an artist, and Edsel Ford wanted to build something special in the early 30s. He teamed up with Bob Gregory and designed 3 special speedsters, which he had hoped would eventually become a limited production run, something that was different from all the other manufacturers. The first speedster, a 32, was low and sleek, but not quite what he had in mind. The second one, this one here in 1934, he and Gregory put this down on pen and paper, designed something even lower, longer. They moved the axles 10 inches forward. They created this low, sleek, boat tail speedster on paper. They actually built a 1/25th scale model, put it in a wind tunnel to create this aerodynamic vehicle. The third one was in 1935, which was probably the closest thing to a car that could actually go into production, but it still wasn't exactly what he wanted. When you drive this car, it's actually a lot tighter and feels a lot better than you would expect it to drive. Keep in mind, it's a 1934. What's also really cool is the fact that you've got these 2 tiny little windscreens. You've got this great big long hood. You've got fenders that are over the wheels, and really those fenders, they're basically the pants covering the wheel on an aircraft, and they've been modified to fit this thing. The way they built this body, it's all aluminum body, something that the craftsman would be familiar with airplanes, and they built a small steel tube frame that they just kind of bent the body and formed the body over. So actually the car is fairly lightweight. The other thing that's kind of cool about the front end of this car is the fact that it's got the split grille. Now originally it didn't come like that. Originally it had a single grille that went right down to the front. What happened though is Edsel overheated the car a number of times and finally parked the car in his gardener's drive shed. When the car came back out of the drive shed in 1940, it had a cracked block. Apparently it froze one winter. They also remember the problems with the overheating, so him and Gregory went over the car and designed this front grille, which allowed more air to come through the radiator and keep the car cool. Driving the car today, you would never know it has an overheating problem. We're down here in Florida, temperature's 150 degrees. I'll tell you one thing, after driving this car for the last hour around here, people aren't sure what it is, but they do know this, it is cool. Well, obviously the car is an unrestored car. If you look at the paint, it needs paint. You look at the interior, it needs an interior. The car runs and drives great, and the body, for an aluminum body, is still in excellent condition. The car has sat for a number of years. But what's more important than that is that this was an exercise in styling by Edsel Ford. Edsel Ford was truly a man who thought cars were art. Well, what's interesting now is the fellow that owns this car, Bill Warner, is another man who thinks cars are art. And he started in 1995, Amelia Island, the concourse down here. He started with a bunch of friends, created an event that is now a world-class event. It's probably one of the top 3 events in North America, and by far, if you take the southeast coast, it is the event. It's held every year right down here on Amelia Island. So what's the value of a car like this? Obviously it's a one-off car. Obviously the car needs a restoration, and the car is a big, big piece of Ford history. Well, we know the number is going to be a 6-figure number, but does it start with a 4, 5, 6? Maybe it's a 7-figure number. In any case, this car is probably the first hot rod ever built.